Thank you for joining us. The Fountain of Youth has been a fantasy for thousands of years, but today medical research is bringing us closer than ever before. An increasing number of institutes and billionaires are financing extensive research to change the way we deal with disease and enhance the lifespans of humankind. Our guests are Peter Nygard, who famously built a global fashion empire and his leading-edge Nygard biotech facilities. Joining us also is the co-founder of the Life Extension Foundation, Bill Faloon, who is pioneering research into the diseases of aging for longer life. They will share their views on these subjects and stem cell research following these messages.
You know you need CoQ10 and fish oil for your heart. You also know you need a multivitamin to maintain your health. But what you don't know is that an award-winning CoQ10, fish oil, and multivitamin are all made by Life Extension. Why settle for less than the power of science, the power of life, the power of Life Extension?
At Gardens Wellness Center, we provide a full menu of holistic services under one roof. Services to heal the body through chiropractic care, acupuncture, and colon hydrotherapy, and services to heal the mind through hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, and life coaching. We practice functional and Chinese medicine and offer a full herbal pharmacy. Visit us today and take charge of your health.
When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful, a miracle. Oh, it was beautiful, magical. And then they showed me a world where I could be so dependable. Oh, intellectual, cynical.
Find magic again. Sprout by HP. With Intel RealSense technology inside, now you can bend the rules of creativity outside.
Since the dawn of time, great men have challenged the status quo and dared to dream.
For every new pioneer, only time can unlock the future. Only history will tell this story.
The University of Oregon made a major announcement on stem cells, one that could lead to breakthroughs in the treatment of Parkinson's, cancer, and many other diseases. For the first time, human skin cells have been transformed into embryonic stem cells. Dr. Shukra Matalapov of the University of Oregon were successfully able to insert an adult skin cell into an unfertilized human egg, which had been stripped of its existing DNA.
So that way the stem cells we create, they would be compatible if we transplant these tissues back into patients.
The process, called somatic cell nuclear transfer, or SCNT, is not new, but the results are and are considered to be a quantum leap forward in the reversal of aging and the treatment of disease.
Stem cells came to its own with Dolly the sheep in 1997. Up until now, the problem has been one of rejection. Our body simply rejects all foreign objects put into it, including somebody else's stem cells.
It's been 15 years since we invented embryonic stem cell. No one figured out to use it.
You know, ever since scientists discovered embryonic stem cells, they wanted to be able to tailor-make those cells with the genetic material of the patients they're trying to treat. And this is the technique that would finally be able to accomplish that goal.
From the woman's egg, we took out her DNA, put my old 70-year-old DNA in its place, grew it in vitro, developed embryonic stem cells, 8-0. This is huge. This is a game changer. This could eliminate all disease. This perhaps is immortality.
Peter Nygard, a Finnish-Canadian fashion tycoon and self-made billionaire who parlayed an $8,000 loan into an empire with annual profits in the hundreds of millions.
I want to live forever or die trying.
Bring the action.
One man, younger at heart than those half his age. living a life most could only dream of, yet sharing his collective fortune with our collective human fate. To live forever. A 1,000-year-old quest made by the legendary Ponce de Leon, the Spanish explorer who spent his days searching for the fountain of youth.
Ponce de Leon had the right idea. He was just too early. That was then. This is now.
Preach. If you want something different, beloved, you got to do something different.
This has always been a four-step plan. To find the right technology, to find the right country, to write the proper laws, and to get the correct facility.
Human beings in a mind.
Currently, there are two leading technologies in stem cell duplication, SCNT and what is called IPS, induced pluripotent stem cells.
But when I asked anybody which would actually be better, IPS or SCNT, well, of course SCNT, if we could ever get past the religious objections and all the bad PR it's getting.
Last time when it was announced by some Korean researchers, it turned out to be a hoax, right?
It was a fraud.
SCNT was dropped altogether. Nobody was interested in it any longer. Nobody except me.
Critics say the stem cells come from destroying embryos, and my newsmaker tonight says that that is simply not true.
The way in which these stem cell lines were derived is from embryos that are created in the process of in vitro fertilization. And in fact, there are hundreds of thousands of these embryos that are simply being discarded.
We throw it in the garbage. We shouldn't do that.
And so in 2009, Peter Nygard creates Nygard Biotech, employing 4 top scientists from around the world in the field of SCNT, channeling his tremendous energy towards finding the missing link in stem cell technology.
The top scientist in SCNT.
I'll give you my DNA now.
And one of them was Russian. And of course the Russian was discovered it.
I'm very glad in any event that you stayed on it, that you made this huge discovery.
Well, this is a very well-respected, well-known team of scientists out at Oregon Health and Science University.
The technology is real, so it works. It's done deal.
I may be the only person in the world who has my own embryonic stem cells growing in a petri dish. Can you imagine that? In that petri dish, that is me before I was born. Science fiction? Scientific fact.
When we die, the money we can't keep, but we probably spend it all because the pain ain't cheap.
With the Western world still embroiled in political debate over embryonic stem cells, Peter set out to find a suitable host country.
We traveled everywhere in the world now for the last 2 years, just looking.
In Shenzhen, Peter forges a partnership with BGI, the world leader in genome sequencing, technology that eliminates all guesswork in medical diagnosis. Combined with SCNT, he would possess both the technology to target future health risks and correct them before they ever happen. But owning the right technology would mean nothing without a country to embrace its use.
Bahamas is almost like the 51st state of the United States. It sits there half an hour away from Miami. I initiated and helped to write the stem cell legislation, and I took them to many countries. Ultimately, the Bahamas adopted them into law.
The Bahamas now has the opportunity to host several important stem cell initiatives.
Prime Minister Christie has shown tremendous courage and political savvy in order to guide this through the legislature. I don't think I've ever seen or been at a more beautiful place.
2 years ago, Peter Nygard called me to say that if your country is prepared to pass legislation, I would find a way to bring scientists who I have retained, and I'm prepared to have them come into the Bahamas.
But I want you to know that stem cell legislation will be passed by us today.
God bless Peter Nygard. So Bahamas stands alone in being a unique country that has written laws and has made SCNT legal.
Who's gonna save the world?
It's been said that if you build it, they will come.
This is basically building a new Mayo Clinic.
Now, on an island paradise, Peter Nygard will join hands with the will of a nation and the legislating power of the Bahamian government to build the world's first state-of-the-art clinic to integrate genomic sequencing and SCNT technology, free of political restriction and years ahead of its time. This will be the first of many future Nygard clinics in places like India, Macau, and Thailand.
He has risked everything: his fortune, his reputation, even his own body.
Now look at my before and after pictures. I gone from anti-aging to reverse aging. I've been on stem cell therapy now 4 times a year for the past 3 years. I'm a living testimonial that this really works.
The time has come.
This is a quantum leap.
The future is now.
This is Peter Nygard's message to the effort of stem cell research that God has already given us our own medicine tucked within our bodies. Keep my head from going down just for a little, just for a little. Watch my feet float off the ground just for a little, just for a little. Love it. You can hear this sound. Oh, just give me something.
If you don't risk anything, you risk everything.
With us now are Peter Nygard, a visionary in the fashion industry and also in reversing aging in the health research area, and of course, Bill Faloon, the co-founder of Life Extension Foundation, and my co-producer and host, Cheryl Martin, president of Gardens Wellness. It's such a pleasure to be with such intellect here today.
I don't know if it's intellect, but it's nice to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your research, sir.
When I got to be 69 years old, I looked at myself in the mirror after just losing my mom. And I looked in the mirror and I said, you're next. But the interesting thing about it was that I didn't recognize myself. I had gotten the normal big belly, and I actually was looking like 69. And I heard somewhere that the trip from 70 to 80 was not a nice trip. And I said right there and then, I said, I ain't going on that trip. And I decided right there not to go on it. And after that, I started discovering the world of stem cells as well as all kinds of other medical devices. And of course, I was reading this man's magazine constantly, and Life Extension. But it really becomes very apparent to you as soon as you hit those magical numbers. And should have come apparent to me a lot earlier, but at least it became then. And then I took some real decisive action.
What kind of research have you done and where have you taken this?
I've really made a point of really knowing everything there is in this world about stem cells. That became my flag. And I was fortunate in the first place to run into a very, very brilliant scientist. And he introduced me to somatic cell nucleus transfer, and he introduced me to the whole idea of Dolly the sheep, and the whole idea of the fact that there is a way to renew ourselves, and there is a new discovery made in this world that in effect can recreate life, Although cloning yourself, became obvious to everybody right at the beginning that it's not legal, the idea that you could take these stem cells that produced the sheep in that case, and actually start applying them and start putting them back into your body that could actually renew your body parts became very fascinating to me. Because my thrust really at that point became immediate. Not only try to live healthy for the next few years, but really to live a long time, healthy, And that meant to me that I had to renew my body parts, Our bodies are breaking down and I had to renew them one way or another. So the research was all over the world. I must have been traveling the world 5 or 6 times around. Whoever was the top person in the world in this field, I went to visit him. And interesting, no one ever turned me down. And I must have met with everybody who's anybody in the whole field of medical science, the field of stem cells, And if there's somebody right now that is out there that I should meet, then please let me know, because I'm going to come and talk to you. But it was such a new field that by me studying it so carefully, I became one of the world experts in it. what I really became fascinated with is this word called somatic cell nucleus transfer, where we actually take a woman's egg, the unfertilized egg, take a woman's egg and take her DNA out of it and put my 7-year-old DNA into it and grew it in vitro.
What's so fascinating, Peter, so the audience can understand what you're actually doing. This is not embryonic cell research. You have done something very unique. You've taken your DNA that's 100% unique to Peter Nygard. You've transferred that DNA into an unfertilized egg. And that unfertilized egg is rejuvenating your DNA, spewing out lots of stem cells that are Peter Nygard stem cells, and you're putting them back into your own body.
I know it's like science fiction, but it's really true. Nobody hardly ever believes this story, until you really start thinking about it. The fact that you could actually return yourself back to age 0, and it's such an unbelievable story. It was unbelievable when we first started doing it, but I was first at this and I didn't know it can't be done. So I just went ahead and done it. And lo and behold, we broke through it and it became news all over the world. All over the world became one of the biggest news,
Well, it makes sense if people understand that their DNA, which is their program, this is what makes a person is their unique DNA. Unfortunately, it's surrounded by an aging cell, and that cell is slowly going to kill the person unless they can rejuvenate their own DNA, and that's exactly what you are doing with this technology.
I'm sure you both have suffered a lot of skeptic people, criticisms. Tell us about your experience.
Well, the Life Extension Foundation has been around since 1977. We were the first to introduce aspirin as a way of preventing heart attack. Everybody disagreed with us. The entire medical establishment said we were wrong. And we fought the FDA and the medical establishment for 15 years. In 1998, the FDA said it's okay to promote aspirin as a way to prevent heart attack. We have over 190 breakthroughs that Life Extension has introduced, and everyone was skeptical in the beginning. Of course they were, because no one had ever done it before. We have laboratories where we do the research, and we're able to validate ahead of time what works and what doesn't. So we're used to the criticism, if there is any right now on this particular project.
And you, Peter, how have you been tormented by critics throughout your career?
Oh, I'm in a very slippery ground, This whole issue touches on the religious grounds, and it's very, very controversial. All the way back from Bush really deciding not to support the embryonic stem cell world at all. And there's such a misconception as to what the word embryonic stem cell is, But there's a lot of people in the community who just drew it at the point of that you just don't go even to the umbilical cord part of it, that you just have to deal with your own what you call adult stem cells, So anyone who wanders out into that other field, gets lots and lots of criticism. Just not only from a religious point of view, but the fact that there's a cult in medicine, in the medical community, and they're very tight about that. They're trained to work within their boundaries, and they're trained from get-go. And anyone who starts wandering into these fields gets potentially criticized for it.
So I heard you're building a facility of your own.
We're raising some money now to build a facility here that if I discover this, and I ultimately did, that I would not be able to use it under the existing regime, under existing laws of the United States. That would take me 20 years before I could ever make something of it. So offshore is growing by leaps and bounds in this industry.
Any interest with you, Bill, in going offshore?
Life Extension has promoted medications available in other countries since our inception. Metformin was used in England in 1957, approved there, approved shortly thereafter throughout Europe. It's the #1 drug to treat type 2 diabetes. Didn't get approved in the United States until 1994. Americans waited 37 years to get a life-saving medication. So what we've done historically is advise our supporters where there are better medical technologies, where they can go or where they can order better technologies to stay alive. Metformin, Deprenyl, ribavirin, a long list of medications that are approved by the FDA now, but they weren't when the Europeans and other people in other countries had access to them. So what Peter is doing is not extraordinary in as much as Other countries often develop technologies before they're available in the United States, and that is regrettable. Peter's work is extraordinary, but going offshore is what people have had to do now for decades.
It's a pity things are so restrictive and one has to do research offshore. Speaking of St. Kitts, nearby is the island of Montserrat. Some friends of Bill are very interested in doing some research there. There's the University of Science, Arts and Technology already established there, and I was wondering whether you know of this.
I don't know of it, no.
Now, let me just briefly explain.
Okay, go ahead.
Montserrat's an interesting country in as much as the volcano eradicated more than half of the island. And it used to have about 13,000 people. It's down to about 6,000 people right now. And they're open right now to bringing new technologies onto the remaining part of the island that exists. So we're actively pursuing opportunities to conduct research in Montserrat where we won't be restricted and hampered by the current regulatory environment that exists in the United States and unfortunately sometimes exists in other countries. We need to move this technology forward fast.
It's not so much the research that's restrictive. It's the translational research. We can do perhaps any kind of research in this country, you know, following the proper rules. But what is really, and it can get very expensive, but it's really the translational research, you know, translating it into medicine that's really...
It is. The great news is we're ready to translate it from the laboratory to the clinical setting. We're ready to do it right now.
That's the key point.
And for the study we're doing in South Florida, we need to get FDA approval to do the human study. And that's going to take about a year, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, that's the key point, you know. There's been so much research being done, and the U.S. has put so much money into this. And the big job now is to translate it. It's sitting there, waiting to be translated. And we're going to have even a bigger job in trying to do a translational research, you know, to make it really therapy that's approved. And FDA is running scared. This thing is getting ahead of them. I believe they are not able to keep up with them, and they're running more and more scared about the whole issue.
Now, you mentioned that this is one of the first times you've shared this with the media, and you said you're ready to launch. What is it that you're ready to start?
The tape that's relatively famous today is my SCNT tape, somatic cell nucleus tape, which sort of starts me on really outlining 4 different steps that I need to take, you know, and find the therapy, you know, find the correct country, and write the proper laws. The 4th thing is to build the facility.
If we can just amalgamate the wealthy people who can afford to contribute, equal contributions towards a project like this could result in people living decades longer in great health. So it is in their own interest and in the interest of society for this kind of research to be pursued.
And there's a certain amount of convincing and selling now that's going to be going on. And perhaps that's the reason I'm even on this program right now, from my own personal point of view, that we're at that stage right now where we just got to gather up some of the people, not many, but those people who have a same interest, you know, as Bill and I have, you know, and there are a lot of them out there. Then we have to be skillful enough to sell them on the program. There's no amount of money you won't spare to make it happen. You just get on this roll.
And that's that somatic cell nuclear transfer. That is the technology you've been using, Peter, to reverse your aging process. It's spectacular.
Spectacular. It's spectacular. So really, most people regard that as the very top of the whole. That's the holy grail up there, you know.
Fascinating science fact.
Yes. Science facts, yeah. And when they're now comparing IPS, SCNT is by far more powerful of the two, you know. But so SCNT has now overridden the whole IPS world. I don't know if you knew that.
Well, the reason is simple. It's your own DNA being transplanted into an egg that then is stimulated to produce your own stem cells. So it should make common sense that the somatic cell nuclear transfer, nuclear meaning the nucleus of your cells, are being put into eggs and they're producing new young Peter Nygards. Yeah. So it makes sense that your technology is working better than what so many millions of others have tried to do and not achieve those similar results.
And then when I had the meeting in St. Kitts with this elite group of medical scientists, and I had around the table, I said, look, fellas, you got to let me know. And I said, because I spend a lot of money on this right now. And if you don't think I should continue to pursue SCNT, and we can just go with IPS or whatever it is, tell me now, because I'll put my energy into the other. without a doubt, every single one of those guys said, natural way is the way to go. That woman's egg is magic.
These are not embryonic technologies. This is something very different, and that's important for people to understand.
There's nothing bad that comes out of a woman. Maybe a little bit of a mouse sometimes. You know, when it comes to the two species, man and a woman by far is superior to the man. But there's something so magical about the issue of being able to grow life like this, you know. And even when you now do it out of the body and just put it in a petri dish, and you're still growing it, you know, and producing those embryonic stem cells that can turn into anything. Your eyes and nose, everything else, you know. There sit all of those cells, you know. And they're mortal. Holy God. You know, I look at those things every day. My God, do I ever look good?
So you want people to invest. How do investors learn about ways to get in?
If anybody really wants to get in the investment business on either one of our subjects, boy, I'm all ready. Bill should be the guy who's contacts, you know.
Well, at this point, what we just encourage people to do is log on to lef.org. LEF for Life Extension Foundation.org, and just register your name if you're interested in pursuing this type of research personally, if you want to be a blood donor, if you want to be an elderly recipient of the young donor's blood, if you want to participate in any of this in any way, just register on our website and we'll reach out to you to let you know where you may be able to contribute towards this incredible, unprecedented objective in human medical history.
Anything you can do early is going to be an advantage. So I have moved up all my cycles early. I'd rather take a risk early than wait too long. You know.
That's correct.
So that's why I'm doing a lot of this stuff well before it's time. I'd rather take a little risk, because if I don't take some risk, I'm going to take every risk. The ultimate risk is the death. You know, that is not a nice risk, you know. So you want to prevent that, start taking risk early. You know.
We are expediting the clinical research in South Florida. As soon as it demonstrates efficacy, as soon as we know we're seeing reversal of aging, then we certainly can make it available anywhere in the world, where people can travel sometimes a short distance to gain access to this technology.
Anything you can do early is going to be an advantage. So I have moved up all my cycles early. I'd rather take a risk early than wait too long, you know.
That's correct.
So that's why I'm doing a lot of this stuff well before it's time. I'd rather take a little risk, because if I don't take some risk, I'm going to take every risk. The ultimate risk is the death. You know, that is not a nice risk, you know. So you want to prevent that, start taking risk early, you know.
It's why we are so interested in accelerating this research across the board. There are dozens of studies that could be funded that are not being funded right now, and people are needlessly dying as a result. There will be a point where there will be, I think, limitless monies being put into this because the results will be so apparent. We just have to be the pioneers to get it off the ground, Peter.
He's a good pioneer right here. He's been doing a hell of a longer than I've been doing.
You both made a difference. That's clear.
In our way, but he's the dean of it, you know. I mean, so I'm nice to be associated with him and to be a friend with him. He says, because I've admired his work for a long, long time, you know.
Thank you, Peter. We've been doing it since 1977, and it's just now getting recognized by some people in the mainstream.
Yeah. Well, this has been really very fascinating. I want to thank you, and a real privilege, sir.
You're welcome.